it's Alice, and today we're gonna do part 2 of my bookshelf tour, and today we're gonna take a look at this shelf in the back right here. So we're just gonna start at the top and work our way down. I have quite a lot of classics on this shelf, like on the top shelves. So I have classics here, here, and then another 2 shelves down. And then the last shelves, the ones that are like hidden by the doors, are a mix of just like everything. But we're gonna start by taking a look at these. Like in the first part of my bookshelf tour, we're gonna start off with this slightly awkward angle. But first, on my top shelf here, I have my Oxford University Press collection of books. These are all classics and they're quite affordable, but I really like them, and I quite like the covers that they have. They're very simple in a way, but I'll show you some of my favorites. All of the covers have this kind of design, so they have white spines and then like a classical painting type thing or an illustration with this white like border on it. This is The Last Man by Mary Shelley, which I've yet to read, but I really like this cover. I also really like these 2 covers. I love any kind of book cover that has this kind of like artwork on it, and both of these are really pretty. I haven't actually read any of these, but you know, I have a lot of books that I haven't read. I also love the cover of this edition of On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. This is again a book on my TBR, which I really need to read. And then this is another type of cover. This is Selected Poetry by Thomas Hardy, so it's a portrait of Thomas Hardy. And you can see that I've actually read this one because I've tabbed it. Next to that, we have this, which is the Great Food series by Penguin. This came in like a huge box set that I got ages ago, and I've taken them out of the box, obviously, because I needed them to fit here. Then we have these like Christmas classics, also by Penguin, I think. And then we have all of my Murakamis. And then a rogue, like, classic on top here, which I only have the one in this like series of covers, so I've just put it here because this is where it fit. The Great Food series has like 20 books or so, and like I said, they came in a box set. And I got them because I like food writing, but I also low-key kind of got them because the covers are just absolutely beautiful. Like, all of them are just gorgeous, and even though I've read only like a couple of these books and I might not read the rest, I just keep them because they're so pretty that I can't get rid of them. They're also quite small, these books, so they don't take up too much space, and I just think they're so beautiful that I can never get rid of them because I just like them so much, and they don't take up that much space, so I feel like it's fine. Beneath that, we have some more beautiful books. These are like Christmas classics published by Penguin. I have 6 of these, and I think maybe I have all of the ones that have been published, although I don't quite know. These are also just really pretty. They're quite small and very well designed. Like, I just love the design of them, and I've actually read several of these, and these are books that I like revisit when the holidays come around. Lastly on the shelf, we have my Murakami collection of books, and I really like these because they're in these really cool editions. Like, a lot of them just look really cool, which, like, I know you should have books because you want to read them, but I got like a bunch of these on a sale once, and I just bought like a bunch. I do really like the book design of these though, and I love how they look together on my shelves. I was in like a Murakami mood when I got all of these books, and I've read like 3 or 4 of them, but now I haven't touched them for a couple of years, so I should probably try to like get back into it, and I should also maybe get rid of the ones that I've read that I didn't like as much, but there's something about having things in like the same editions that make it difficult to get rid of. I think maybe the cover I like the most out of these is this one, and this is one of the books that I'm most interested in reading, so one day I'm gonna get to this, but it is a little bit chunky, so it might take me a little while. On the next shelf, we have an assortment of different kinds of books. Like, we have some novellas, some John Wyndham. These books are by John Boyne, and then I have a bunch of these like Penguin Modern Classics. This is a shelf that is like completely jam-packed though. So I'm gonna have to like take out some books in order to like get to show you some of them. The books to the very left here, I kind of want to show you because I really like these covers. Again, I think it's really cool book design. All of these have a silhouette on them and they're all kind of like different and they have a solid color. I really like these. I had another one that I actually got rid of because I didn't like it after I'd read it, but I've read this book, which is Youth Without God, and it's really, really good and great if you like 1984 by George Orwell. If you like that book, you should read this one. Then we have 4 of my 5 in total books by John Wyndham. I have 4 in these editions, and then I have the last one in like a modern classic edition. Again, these books are really cool. I really like the design, and John Wyndham is one of my favorite dystopian authors, and I've read 3 out of the 5 that I have. Or maybe I've read another one. I can't remember, but I've read this one, haven't read this one. This one is still on my TBR, and this one I've read. I'd really recommend John Wyndham if you like dystopian fiction. His works are great. Then we have these books by John Boyne, and the 2 most known ones are probably these ones. I've only read A Ladder to the Sky, but The Heart's Invisible Furies is on my TBR. I really want to try and get to it this year, actually, but it is a little bit chunky, so it's intimidating me a little bit, but I am going to read it. But A Ladder to the Sky was amazing. I loved it. I can see that it's not for everyone because it has a very unlikable main character, but I would say it's really, really good. Next to that, we have my Penguin Modern Classic collection. I have loads of these. I used to be obsessed with them when they made the spines white because I love how they look together, and I also generally just really like the design of the covers for these, but they changed it so that the spines are this blue color, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't like as much, so I don't really get a lot of these anymore, which is a shame because I would love to have like so many classics that look like these, and the modern classics have a lot of classics that I think are really intriguing, but you know, I still have a pretty sizable collection, so I'm happy with it, but I don't love these like blue spines. This is the John Wyndham book that I mentioned before that I have in a different edition. I love this cover. I think it's really cool. I really like the design and the illustration, and this is my favorite book by John Wyndham. It's about these plants that start taking over after this comet has passed, and it's made so that most people are blind. It's real complicated, but it's very, very good. I also have several books by Yasunari Kawabata in these editions, and one of the reasons I really like these editions so much is that whenever you have several books by one author, the covers don't match in the way that they're the same, but they're all in the same type of style. Whereas some of these other ones have completely different styles on the covers, but if you got more books by this author, all of the covers would look really good together. These are also the editions that I have my Virginia Woolf collection in, which I'm really happy with. We have A Room of One's Own, Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse. We have Orlando, which I really like the cover of. I think it's really cool. And then The Waves. Virginia Woolf is an author you would think I didn't like, but for some reason it really works for me. She writes in stream of consciousness, which is a very specific type of writing, and my favorite by her is Mrs. Dalloway, and then I also really love A Room of One's Own. I have 4 of the ones with blue spines, and my favorite out of these is probably In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. This is an excellent, excellent true crime book. It's very detailed, but it's like very, very good. On the third shelf, I have these translated books by Pushkin Press. I have these 2 random fiction books, which I put here because they have red spines and they match all of these books, which are like the vintage red spine classics, I think. These translated books from Pushkin, though, are really cool. I really like these editions, and they have like different types of art of them, but they all kind of match, and I got these because I love reading translated books, and this like series offers a bunch of different translated books from all around the world, which I think is really cool, and from all kinds of languages. I've read a couple of these, but I still need to read the rest, and I just really like these. I think they're really cool looking, and I also like that they're in this like smaller format, so they're easier to take with you, and the paperback is like really high quality. Next to that, we have these vintage red spine books, which I actually used to have quite a lot of more of, but I've gotten rid of quite a lot of them because I just didn't want to keep them. I quite like how all of these red spines look together, and I like the covers of a lot of these. They are different when it comes to like different authors, so they have different types of art styles, but I think a lot of them look really cool. My favorite books that I've read out of these are probably To Kill a Mockingbird and The Dumb House. To Kill a Mockingbird is a book that is just absolutely amazing. I know a lot of people read it for school. I didn't read it for school. I read it in like my mid-20s, and I was just absolutely blown away. There's a reason this book is a classic. And then we have The Dumb House, which is a super weird book. And it's all about language, and it's hard to explain, but it's a very weird and interesting book. This one though, Stoner, I haven't read yet, but it's really, really high on my TBR. I really, really want to get to this because I just have a feeling that I'm really gonna like it. Then we have some nonfiction. This is a nonfiction book about art that I really want to read. This is a book that I know I'm gonna love. Everyone tells me, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It is also quite chunky, so it's like taking me a little bit of effort to pick up, but I am gonna read it. And then we have these orange spines, which again, I used to have a lot of these, and now I've culled my collection quite a lot, so I only have these ones left. My favorite ones out of these are probably these books by Carlo Rovelli. These books are all about like space and science and reality and physics. They're very, very interesting, and I feel like I learned so much from them. They're very easy to read, although both of these gave me a little bit of an existential crisis, but that's okay. I also have this book by Carlo Rovelli, which is The Order of Time, which is all about time and how that works, which is also super trippy. Next to that, I have these two books, which are science fiction classic, like short stories about space. And I got these just because I like space and I thought they looked cool. I really like the cover design on these. And then lastly on here, we have this edition of Dead Poets Society, which I want to read, even though the movie came out first, and this is like based on the movie. Then we have Ninth House. Ninth House blew my mind when I read it. I read it this year, actually, and I absolutely loved it. I know not everyone gets on with this for whatever reason, but I thought it was amazing. I can't wait for the sequel. It's coming out in January, which is not that long to wait, and I'm really, really excited. I would really recommend this if you like dark academia / like urban fantasy. It's really good. Moving on to the next shelf, we have got my Penguin English library books, and these books are probably the ones I have the most classics in. It's like my biggest classics collection in all the same editions, and I love them. I have placed them like this because I have so many of them that I can't fit them the other way around, and they probably look better when they're stacked up in a different way. But I don't really care. I love my collection of these, and these are some of my favorite covers ever. And I find that these are not like super expensive. They're relatively affordable, which I really like. The covers are all really cool. I'm sure you've seen these before, but like, I just love them. I love how the covers are inspired by the actual book, and they're all kind of in the same style, but they're all different, which I love. A lot of the Bronte classics that I have in these editions. I have Wuthering Heights here, and then I also have Shirley and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and then I think another one over there. I really like the look of this as well. I have an edition of Frankenstein. I have a lot of editions of Frankenstein, and I just got this because it's one of my favorite classics. We also have The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I read recently, and this one I've actually tabbed as well. I have several books by Thomas Hardy in these editions as well. We have my favorite, which is Far From the Madding Crowd. This cover in particular I love, but I think it's just because I love bees for some reason. And then we also have some Charles Dickens. I really need to read more Charles Dickens, and I have several of his books. I just need to get around to reading them, you know how it is. I just have a lot of these. A lot of them I still need to read, but I love my collection. I think they're so pretty. The Penguin Modern Classics take up most of this shelf, but I have managed to fit some extra books here, and these ones are absolutely beautiful. They're some of my most beautiful books that I own, and I need to show you all of them. These are seasonal poetry collections edited by Ali Asiri, and they're meant to like cover an entire season, and you get like a poem. I think you actually get 2 poems per day for 3 months, and I just think these are so beautiful. They have foil on them, and the book design of these, they just do something to me, and once I got the first one, I just had to get all of them. Because I am who I am, I think probably my favorite one is the autumn one. I just think this is so beautiful. I love fall, and this color and everything on it just does a lot for me, and I absolutely love it. I think it's so, so beautiful, although all of them are beautiful, so like, it's hard to choose. Lastly on the shelf though, I have another 2 books. I have If We Were Villains, which I still need to read. I know everyone tells me I'm gonna love it, and I think I'm gonna love it as well, but I feel like this is a very fall appropriate book, so I'm gonna try to read it some autumn at, you know, maybe this year, maybe next year, who knows. Then we have one of my favorite books, The Secret History. This is the edition that I've read the most. It's getting a little bit battered, but I kind of like it because it's my favorite book, and I like that it looks a little bit loved. It definitely feels loved, like when you touch it, you can tell that it's like a used book, and I love it. Now we're in the section of the bookshelf that is covered by the doors, and these parts of my bookshelves are always a lot messier than the rest of my shelves, and I always keep the prettiest spines where you can see them, and then I just put everything else here. My shelves are very full, so we have like books on top here. This is a book that I really like the cover of and I really need to read. I think it's like a horror novel. And then I have some true crime and some fiction, and this is just an assortment of all kinds of things. 2 books that I want to highlight here, though, are these 2 books. Both of these are true crime books. I'll Be Gone in the Dark is pretty famous, so you may have heard of it, but it's really, really good and definitely worth the read. It's pretty creepy, but really good. And then this one is also good. It's really like a tough read. Like if you want to read this, look up the trigger warnings first because it's pretty heavy, but it's really well written and gives us a really human look into a murder and trauma and all kinds of things. It's really, really good. Next to that, we have Sugar Money, which is a beautiful, beautiful book that has like foil on it. And this is actually a really good historical fiction novel. It's set in the Caribbean, and I actually really want to reread this because when I read it, I loved it. These are books that I haven't read, but I have on my TBR. We have some historical fiction, some just regular fiction, I think. This I got because it was on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list or short list at some point. Then we have Mexican Gothic, which is still on my TBR. I really want to read. We have a memoir that I also really want to read. This is one of those books that I know I'm gonna love, but I'm scared of reading it because of what it's about. Then we have a Norwegian book about like nature and just all kinds of things. We have the Viraga Book of Witches, which I actually want to show you because the cover is really, really cool. I love this kind of book design. It's just really pretty and it has illustrations all the way around. I also have this edition of Lord of the Flies by William Golding, which is a classic. I read this in school and I actually really want to reread it because I wonder what I'll think of it now. But it's one of the few books that I read in school that I feel like I got a lot out of reading it in school, if you know what I mean. Like, I loved the discussions that we had around this book. Next to that, we have another book in Norwegian. We have this beautiful book. This is like a naked hardcover that I was actually sent for free, and it's absolutely beautiful. We have a non-fiction book. We have this book, which is one of my favorites. I think this is just an amazing story, and I still think about the main character all the time. I just think it's so good, and I know that there is a movie coming, which I'm super excited to see. Then we have the reading list, which I'm gonna read this summer. We have some books on top here. If you've been around for a while, you will know that this is one of my favorite books that I feel is super underrated. Everyone should read it. It's really cool. It is written in dialect, so it's a little bit difficult to get into, but it's an amazing, amazing coming-of-age story. We have this book, which I read ages ago and I really, really liked. I also really love this cover and the spine. I think it's really cool. Then we have Circe by Madeline Miller, which, I mean, just look at this. This cover is just everything. And I really like this book as well, and I love the book Song of Achilles. So whatever Madeline Miller writes, I will read. Then we have this book, which I'm not gonna lie, I have mostly because it's so beautiful and it's like textured, so this feels like fabric and it's beautiful. It's a Christmas book of some kind, which I haven't read. Then we have a Norwegian nonfiction book and this nonfiction book, which is about archaeology. This is a chunker, but I love this book. If you like archaeology and you like history, this is a great place to like start learning about it. On the second to last shelf, we have more of a mix of all kinds of things. Again, I just put things where they fit and they just end up where they end up. But we have this book, which I really want to read. We have this, which I also want to read. And this is just a mess. There are a lot of things here, but a book I want to highlight for those of you who are Norwegian, who are watching. This is a great book about Sami culture. It's kind of like a memoir, and if you don't know, the Sami people are Norway's like native people, like Aboriginal people. This is a great book. I read it this year and I've thought about it a lot since. Then we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and this, for some reason, it's one of my favorite covers. I don't know why, I just love it. There's something about this book design that just does a lot for me, even though it's quite simple and there's no foil or anything. I just think it's so cool. And this is a pretty good book as well. It's horror, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's set in the 90s in the suburbs. Great read for summer, so if you want to read like a summer type book, this is great. Next, we have this book, which is one of those books I'm sure I'm going to love. This was actually sent to me by one of my subscribers very kindly, and it's one of those books that I keep not reading because I know I'm gonna love it, so I just keep it, but I should really just learn to read those books. Then we have some fiction, some Norwegian nonfiction, historical fiction, and nonfiction. I've actually read this one. Ben McIntyre is one of my favorite nonfiction writers, and this one is really, really good. I have a lot of unread books next to that. I have this one. I have this book by Isabel Allende, which I really want to read. I also really like this book design. I kind of want to get more of Isabel Allende's books in these kinds of covers, if there are any. I need to look into that, but I really, really like this. Then we have some historical fiction. I think this is also historical fiction. The cover is really, really pretty. We have this, which I keep saying that I need to read. Still need to read it because I haven't done it yet. This is a mystery. This is a beautiful, beautiful cover. I love the colors of this one. And this is a book I also think I'm really gonna like. Then we have this by David Attenborough, which I've read, and it's really, really good. If you have it in you to read about climate change, this is great. Then we've got another stack of just like random books. This is a graphic novel. I should really put this on my next shelf where I have the rest of my graphic novels, but right now it's here. We have some historical fiction, just general fiction, some non-fiction, but on the bottom here I have 3 books that I just have to show you because they're very different but very cool. So these books are fairy tales and they are fully illustrated, and I think these books are so cool. They were kind of expensive, but I love the art style. It's very like almost kind of dark and a little disturbing, which I feel like a lot of fairy tales are, so I feel like it fits the stories really well. I guess Alice in Wonderland is not a fairy tale, but the 2 other ones are fairy tales. I think the covers are just really interesting looking. They're just different. I don't really know how to explain it. And they're illustrated on the inside as well with like color illustrations, and I just think it's really cool. I feel like especially for Alice in Wonderland, it's cool to have a more dark twist on it because Alice in Wonderland is really, it is a very twisty story, I guess. It's sort of hard to describe. Lastly on the shelf, we have my little The Handmaid's Tale corner. The Handmaid's Tale is one of my favorite like modern classics. I have this edition of it, which I love. It's hardcover and very minimalistic, and I really, really like it. We have The Testaments, which is the sequel, and then I have this, which is The Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel, which I got sent, and it's just a different way of reading the story, which I really like, and I really like the artwork in here. We've made it to the final shelf, and the final shelf is always the messiest, so just bear with me, but I have put as many books as possible into this shelf because I don't have a lot of room. Here we have a Norwegian memoir, we have a graphic novel, which I kind of want to like put in here with my other hardback graphic novels, but it doesn't fit, so I've just put it on top here. I really like this one though. This is a book that I revisit like most Octobers because it just has like classic Victorian age, like ghostly tales, as the title says, and I just think it's a really pretty edition and it's perfect to read when it's all dark and stormy outside. Over here though, we have the sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird, which I still haven't read. We have this book, which was recommended to me and I still need to read. This is a translated book. We have Homegoing, which was really good. We have this book, which is really cool. If you like nonfiction about like space and having it served to you in like bite-sized pieces, this is great. Stay With Me is great. Educated is really good. Memoirs of a Geisha I've had for ages. Then we have this book, which I've gone through this, not taken anything out because it's just a struggle, but I actually really need to show you this book, so I'm just gonna have to take everything out. Now this is a fantastic book if you're like me and you like covers. This is all about like different classic covers that have been published by Penguin, and you get to see them and you get to read about like how they made the decision of using that on the cover and where they found it and all kinds of things like that, which I think is just very interesting. I love book covers and I love book design, and so I've flipped through this several times and like read pieces of it, and it's one of my favorite books that I have actually. I think it's really cool. It also works pretty well as a coffee table book, I feel. Over here though, I have my hardcover graphic novels. I have the rest of my graphic novels on the next shelf, but like this is so tall that it doesn't really fit anywhere else, so I've just put them together here. Like I said, I want to put this book in as well, but I can't fit it yet, and these books are beautiful, especially the ones by Isabel Greenberg. Isabel Greenberg is probably my favorite like graphic novelist. She writes her own stories and she illustrates them, and they're always like really weird, but also very creative and really cool and kind of funny. Like, I like her sense of humor. And the art style looks like this. I really like it. I like the use of color. And these books are just a treat to read. I have this one, which is called The 100 Nights of Hero, and then I also have Glass Town, which is about the Brontes and their like growing up in their fantasy world that they created when they were younger, which is really cool. Again, same kind of art style. I do think Isabel Greenberg has another graphic novel that I don't have, and I should really get it because I love her books. This one is also one of my favorite books. This is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. This is all about like different impactful women and a little bit about them, and all of them are illustrated by different artists, so you get to see all of this different kind of art, and there are different kinds of portraits, which I think is really cool. This is a great book to like gift to people as well, and I've given this book to several people. Well, not this book obviously, but I've bought several copies and given them away. Lastly on the shelf we have this random historical fiction book that I couldn't fit anywhere else, and then we have these like Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls postcards, which are really cool. They basically just have the illustration on them, and then they have the bio on the back, which is really cool. And then we have my Harry Potter collection. I feel like it's kind of unnecessary to talk too much about these, but I have just the regular like paperbacks. I have like Tales of the Beedle the Bard and stuff like that, and then I have some of these illustrated editions, and that's kind of it. And that means we have reached the end of this shelf. Okay everyone, that was part 2 of my bookshelf tour. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Part 3 will be up whenever I feel like making that, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and I will see you soon. Bye!